boom, 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 like one right after the other. And the guy hit the ground, and then I see my father's hand.
At just 5 years old, Rita Gigante watched blood drip to her feet as a man was beaten nearby. Constance Castellano's ex-husband was murdered on her father, John Gotti's orders, and she later sued him for $100 million. In this video, we're diving into the lives of Mafia bosses' daughters and what they've been up to. Lucia Reina. Our first story takes us to Paris, where a young woman named Lucia Reina has been trying to build a life as far removed as possible from the blood-soaked legacy of her father. Lucia Reina, born on April 11, 1980 in Corleone, Sicily, is the youngest daughter of Salvatore Toto Reina, one of the most notorious figures in the history of organized crime. Salvatore Reina, known as the Beast or Il Capo dei Capi, the boss of bosses, was the head of the Corleonese clan within the Cosa Nostra. His reign of terror peaked in the early 1990s with a series of brutal assassinations that shocked Italy and the world. He orchestrated the murders of anti-mafia judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, attacks that marked some of the darkest chapters in Italy's fight against organized crime. After being arrested in 1993, he spent the remainder of his life in prison, dying on November 17, 2017 at age 87. For Lucia, growing up in Corleone, the very town that inspired Mario Puzo's fictional Corleone family in The Godfather, meant living under the constant shadow of her father's infamy. She grew up in a town infamous for its mafia connections, being the youngest of 4 siblings, including Giovanni and Giuseppe, both of whom have followed in their father's footsteps with criminal records.
Je suis honorée de porter ce nom et j'en suis heureuse. C'est le nom de famille de mon père et j'imagine que n'importe quel enfant qui aime ses parents ne va pas changer de nom de famille.
This statement, made during a Swiss television interview, sparked immediate controversy across Italy. In her first televised interview in 2013 with Swiss TV, she expressed pride in her surname, saying, "I'm honored to be called this Reina and happy because it's my father's name," while also offering condolences to victims. This interview triggered an earthquake of outrage, with victims' rights groups threatening legal action. But Lucia's story is far more complex than a single controversial statement. She has pursued a career as a painter, a passion she developed from childhood, using her art as a means of self-expression and a way to distance herself from her family's criminal activities. Her artistic journey led her to make a dramatic decision that would change her life forever. In 2018, seeking new opportunities and a fresh start, Lucia moved to Paris with her husband Vincenzo Bellomo and their daughter. This move was facilitated by Pascal Fratellini, a Paris nightclub owner who had purchased some of her paintings and offered her both a small apartment and a role at his restaurant. The restaurant venture, however, became a source of renewed controversy. In November 2018, she worked at a restaurant named Corleone by Lucia Reina, located on Rue Daru in the 8th arrondissement. The establishment, specializing in Sicilian cuisine, featured her canvases and the crest of Corleone, but it drew significant criticism in Italy for seemingly exploiting her father's notoriety. Responding to the backlash, Lucia removed her name from the restaurant's signage and advertisements, emphasizing her desire to be recognized as an artist, not a mafia descendant. In a 2019 interview with Le Parisien, she clarified her position. "My father, Toto Reina, has his story. I have mine. I want to be known for what I am without having to change my name." The financial pressures facing the Reina family have been immense. In 2017, Sicilian authorities refused to pay Italy's baby bonus to Lucia after she gave birth, citing her family's mafia connections. Additionally, the Sicilian tax agency demanded €2 million from the Reina family to cover Salvatore's prison costs, a move contested by their lawyer as legally unfounded. While Lucia sought a fresh start in the art galleries of Paris, another daughter of organized crime was wrestling with the ghosts of her past on the other side of the Atlantic. Rita Gigante. From the streets of Greenwich Village to the therapy couch, Rita Gigante's story is one of trauma, identity, and ultimately healing. Rita Gigante is the youngest daughter of Vincent the Chin Gigante, who led the Geneves crime family and was head of all 5 New York crime families for decades. Vincent Gigante was known for one of the most elaborate and long-running deceptions in organized crime history. For nearly 3 decades, he feigned mental illness to avoid prosecution, walking the streets of New York City in pajamas and talking to parking meters, all while secretly running one of the most powerful crime families in America.
By the time I was 6 months old, my dad decided to move us out to New Jersey. And my mom was able to choose from whatever houses she wanted. We ended up moving to Old Tappan, New Jersey, which is probably the best thing that ever happened, because my dad, being who he was the head of the Geneves crime family in Manhattan, but he was also the head of the commission.
Rita's childhood was marked by an atmosphere of secrecy and fear that she couldn't understand at the time. She grew up living on two sides of the George Washington Bridge, half her life in New Jersey, the other half in New York on Sullivan Street, in Greenwich Village with her father. The family lived in what appeared to be modest circumstances, but beneath the surface, something far more sinister was brewing. The most traumatic moment of Rita's young life came when she was just 5 years old, an experience that would haunt her for decades.
I was under the table and there was Italian music playing in the background, and all of a sudden I hear this ruckus, right? And I hear men who they were about to beat him, and all of a sudden I hear the punches. Boom, 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 like one right after the other. And the guy hit the ground, and then I see my father's hand, and the blood started to trickle to me, like to my feet. And I started to shake uncontrollably.
This violent scene, witnessed from beneath her grandmother's dining room table, would mark the beginning of Rita's lifelong struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, and various mental health challenges. She didn't learn of her father's true occupation until she was 16 years old, but even as a child, she knew something was fundamentally wrong with her family situation.
I didn't want to be a part of that world. I loved my dad, but I knew at a very, very young age something was not right. I didn't know what he did until I was about 16 years old. But at a very young age, children know things. They don't necessarily know how they know, but they absolutely know that there's something not right.
Rita's personal struggles extended far beyond her father's criminal activities. As she grew older, she grappled with her sexual identity in a strictly Catholic Italian household.
At age 11, I knew I was gay, right? I felt it in my bones. I knew it. I was never going to be with a man.
When she finally found the courage to come out to her parents at age 19, the response was devastating.
And I said, I'm gay. I said, I like women. Because my mother looked at him. A lot of kids your age, 19. A lot of kids your age go through this. This is just, something you go through. He said, you're experimenting. It's okay. He says, you're going to get married. You're going to have kids.
The rejection forced Rita back into the closet for several more years, compounding her psychological distress. She suffered from OCD, anxiety, depression, and violence, which she attributes to the stress and secrecy of her family's life.
They didn't say go to therapy. I put myself in therapy, okay? And the first time in 19 years, well, first I was told, make sure you don't talk about the family. Just talk about your anxiety. After 3 visits of drilling her, I finally say, okay, this is what it is. And I told her who my father was and what the situation was. And all of a sudden, it was like 1,000 pounds came off of me.
Rita's path to healing began when she put herself in therapy at age 19. Following her father's death in 2005, Rita embarked on a remarkable transformation. She pursued a degree in exercise physiology and became a licensed massage therapist and Reiki master. In 2010, she founded the Collective Healing Network, which conducts monthly healing sessions in New York and New Jersey. Rita's spiritual journey led her to discover what she believes are psychic abilities. She now works as a psychic medium and healer, running a private practice outside NYC that focuses on various healing methods, including energy therapy, intuitive healing, spiritual counseling, sound therapy, and angel readings. In 2012, Rita published her memoir, The Godfather's Daughter, an unlikely story of love, healing, and redemption, which details her struggles and journey toward healing. The book explores themes of deception, honesty, violence, love, sickness, and healing, providing a first-hand account of the impact of Mafia life on her family. Perhaps most remarkably, Rita claims to have reconciled with her father's spirit after his death.
And he says to me, apologizing profusely, I was wrong. I did this, I did that, you were right. I made so many mistakes. I hurt your mother so bad. He looked at what's called your life review when you get in the spirit world, and he realized he took it way too far. His ego got the best of him, and he admitted it, all of it.
In 2013, she married her long-term girlfriend, Bobby Sturkala, and continues to share her story through interviews and podcasts. Recent interviews include a January 24, 2025 episode of the Sisters Cracking Up podcast, where she discussed her transformation from a crime boss's daughter to a spiritual healer focused on acceptance, redemption, and forgiveness. Whereas Rita stepped away from the spotlight and into the world of spirituality, the next daughter on our list did the complete opposite. She embraced the fame, leaned into the legacy, and built a brand off her notorious last name. Let's talk about Victoria Gotti. No discussion of Mafia daughters would be complete without Victoria Gotti, arguably the most famous and media-savvy of all the women on our list. Born November 8, 1962, in Brooklyn, New York, Victoria is the daughter of John Gotti, the notorious boss of the Gambino crime family, known as the Dapper Don and the Teflon Don for his stylish appearance and ability to escape conviction. John Gotti was perhaps the most media-famous mobster of the 20th century, a man whose flamboyant lifestyle and courtroom victories made him a household name in the 1980s and early 1990s. His daughter Victoria would inherit not just his name, but also his flair for publicity and media attention. Victoria grew up in a modest household in Howard Beach, New York, with her siblings Angela, John Jr., Frank, and Peter. Described as shy, she was a straight-A student who skipped 2 grades and entered St. John's University at 15, though she later dropped out. The family faced tragedy when her brother Frank died in a 1980 motorbike accident, an event that deeply affected the entire family. Unlike many Mafia daughters who shunned the spotlight, Victoria embraced it. Her writing career began with Women and Mitral Valve Prolapse, 1995, inspired by her own health condition. She then transitioned to fiction with mystery novels and later penned her memoir, which offers insights into her life as a Gotti. Victoria's personal life has been marked by both triumph and tragedy. In 1984, she married Carmine Agnello, despite her parents' disapproval. The couple had 3 sons and a stillborn daughter, but their marriage would be tested by Carmine's criminal activities. Agnello's 2000 conviction for racketeering led to their 2003 divorce. Victoria's real claim to fame came through her reality show Growing Up Gotti, which aired on Andy from 2004 to 2005. The show followed her life as a single mother raising her 3 sons in their 7-bedroom Long Island mansion, offering viewers a glimpse into what she portrayed as the more mundane aspects of life in a famous crime family. But Victoria's relationship with the media hasn't always been smooth. In August 2005, she announced she had breast cancer, but it was later clarified as precancerous cells, leading to controversy when her publicist quit, accusing her of exaggerating the diagnosis. Victoria denied these claims, asserting her health crisis was genuine.
Victoria Gotti is the boss's daughter. So I think that she's going to be the best person to give me advice on how to control these women.
This quote from an episode of Mob Wives, where Big Ang seeks Victoria's counsel, illustrates the respect and authority that Victoria commands within the world of organized crime families. Her advice during the meeting reveals her understanding of the complex dynamics within these circles. Victoria's business acumen extends beyond entertainment. In December 2023, she sold 9 New York City properties for $36 million, indicating significant financial activity and business savvy. However, the Gotti family continues to face legal challenges. In 2024, Gotti family businesses were ordered to pay $210,000 in fines and clean up toxic chemicals from a Queens scrapyard. More personally devastating for Victoria, her grandson Carmine G. Agnello Jr. pleaded guilty to wire fraud for fraudulently collecting over $1 million in COVID relief loans in September 2024. Despite these ongoing challenges, Victoria remains active in public life. As of June 2025, she remains active on social media, with an Instagram post on June 15, 2025, wishing her son John a happy Father's Day. Victoria's memoir, This Family of Mine, What It Was Like Growing Up Gotti, 2009, was adapted into a Lifetime movie, Victoria Gotti, My Father's Daughter, 2019, where she served as narrator, co-writer, and executive producer. Through her various media ventures, Victoria has consistently sought to present a more humanized view of her family, emphasizing the ordinary moments amid extraordinary circumstances. But not every Gotti daughter craved cameras and book deals. While Victoria built a media empire, her sister chose the shadows. Angela Gotti might be less well known, but her loyalty to the family and her entrepreneurial spirit tell a quieter yet equally compelling story. Angela Gotti. While her sister Victoria courted fame and media attention, Angela Angel Gotti, born in 1961, chose a markedly different path as the eldest daughter of John Gotti. Where Victoria embraced the spotlight, Angela retreated into relative privacy, becoming an entrepreneur and fierce defender of her family's legacy from behind the scenes. Angela was born in Queens, New York, as the eldest of 5 siblings, Victoria John Jr., Frank, deceased 1980, and Peter. Growing up as the oldest child in such a high-profile crime family came with unique pressures and responsibilities that shaped her approach to life. Unlike Victoria, who turned her family name into a brand, Angela has maintained a much lower profile throughout her life. However, she has been equally passionate about defending her father's image and legacy. In 2001, she launched a website to refute negative media stories about her father during his solitary confinement and battle with cancer. Angela's emotional investment in her family was clearly visible during the legal proceedings involving her brother John Jr. She regularly attended John Jr.'s trial dates, showing emotional support, with reports of her breaking down in tears during court proceedings. These moments revealed the deep personal toll that the family's legal troubles continued to take on all the Gotti children. In 2013, Angela demonstrated her entrepreneurial spirit by launching Angel Gotti Footwear, a business specializing in hand-decorated flip-flops and sandals. This venture reflected her desire to establish an identity separate from her father's criminal legacy, focusing on creativity and business acumen. The business later expanded into handbags, showing Angela's ambition to build a legitimate enterprise. However, Angela's life hasn't been without its controversies and challenges. In early 2022, Angela and her son Frankie were involved in a high-profile legal dispute, suing Gene Borello, a former Bonanno crime family gangster, for $10 million over online harassment. They accused Borello of placing their faces on adult content and sharing forged photos, a case that highlighted the ongoing challenges that Mafia families face in the digital age. Angela's personal life has also been subject to some confusion and controversy. Multiple sources indicate she has two children, son Frankie Gotti Albano and daughter Victoria Gotti Albano, from her relationship with Louis Albano, a trucking company executive who has since passed away. However, some sources dispute the existence of a daughter, creating uncertainty around her family details. Frankie is known as a Twitch broadcaster, representing a new generation of the Gotti family that has embraced digital platforms and modern technology, a far cry from the traditional, organized crime world of his grandfather. Angela maintains an active presence on social media, particularly on X, formerly Twitter, where she shares updates about her family and shows support for her nephew, John Gotti III's boxing career. Her social media presence provides insights into her personal life, though she remains less exposed than her sister Victoria. The contrasts between Angela and Victoria illustrate the different ways that children of notorious figures can choose to navigate their inherited fame. While Victoria leveraged her name for media success, Angela has focused on building legitimate businesses and maintaining family bonds away from the public eye. As of June 19, 2025, Angela Gotti continues to live a relatively private life, with no recent news articles specifically about her, suggesting she prefers to stay out of the spotlight. Her focus appears to be on her children, her business endeavors, and supporting family members while maintaining the lower profile she has cultivated throughout her adult life. As the Gotti sisters chose their divergent paths, another woman connected to Mafia royalty was navigating her own tragic journey, one marked by family bloodlines and literal bloodshed. Constance Castellano, daughter of the slain Gambino boss Paul Castellano, witnessed firsthand how love, power, and revenge collide in the underworld. Constance Castellano. Among all the daughters we've discussed, perhaps none remains more enigmatic than Constance Castellano, the daughter of Paul Castellano, the Gambino family boss who preceded John Gotti. Constance, born in 1945, was the daughter of Paul Castellano and his wife, Nina Mano, making her the youngest of 4 children with 3 older brothers. Paul Castellano, known as Big Paul, was a very different kind of mob boss than the flamboyant John Gotti, who would eventually orchestrate his murder. Castellano focused heavily on legitimate business fronts and was known for his preference for white-collar crime over the violent street activities that characterized other mobsters. He succeeded Carlo Gambino as head of the Gambino family in 1976 and was murdered in 1985 in one of the most shocking hits in organized crime history. Constance's life was tragically marked by violence from an early age. She first married Frank Amato in the early 1960s in a traditional Sicilian-style wedding attended by many powerful Gambino mobsters. However, their marriage was troubled from the start, with reasons cited as spousal abuse and infidelity, leading to their divorce in 1973. The story takes a dark turn here, as Frank Amato's fate was sealed by his connection to the Castellano family. Amato was lured to the Gemini Lounge in Brooklyn and murdered in September 1980 on Paul Castellano's orders. This wasn't the only violence that would touch Constance's personal life. Her father also allegedly ordered the murder of Vito Borelli, Constance's boyfriend, in 1975 because Borelli compared him to Frank Perdue, the owner of Perdue Farms, an insult that cost Borelli his life. These personal tragedies illustrate the brutal reality of life within organized crime families, where personal relationships could become matters of life and death based on the patriarch's whims and perceived slights. Following her first marriage's tragic end, Constance remarried Joseph Catalanati, a business associate and alleged mob associate. Together, they had a daughter named Andrea and lived in a modest mansion on Tot Hill, Staten Island, near her family's homestead. Unlike other Mafia daughters who distanced themselves from family business, Constance was actively involved in her father's legitimate businesses, businesses, working as a secretary for Dial Poultry, which supplied chicken to fast food chains like Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's, and helping manage his real estate properties and investments. When her father was murdered by John Gotti's crew in December 1985, Constance became involved in the legal aftermath. In 1987, following her father's murder, Constance testified against John Gotti, providing insight into the Gambino family's inner workings. She also attempted to seek justice through civil courts, suing Gotti for $100 million, alleging emotional distress, but the case was ultimately dismissed. Constance made some public appearances in television documentaries, appearing as Self, Paul Castellano's daughter, in The Final Report in 2006, and Network First in 1994. These appearances provided glimpses into her perspective on her father's legacy and the impact of his murder. However, Constance's current status remains one of the most controversial aspects of this story. Some sources claim she died in 2017 of cancer and was buried at Moravian Cemetery, Staten Island, but this cannot be confirmed through reliable sources or official records such as obituaries. The lack of definitive public records leaves open the possibility that she may still be alive, living a private life away from public scrutiny. While Constance's life played out amidst boardroom deals and courtroom battles, our final story belongs to someone who chose silence, a name rarely heard, a face barely seen. Marie Genovese, the stepdaughter of one of the most feared mob bosses in American history, quietly carried the weight of a violent legacy. Marie Genovese. Our final story brings us to perhaps the most private figure on our list, Marie Genovese, whose connection to organized crime came through her stepfather rather than her biological father. Marie was born on February 27, 1927 in New York City to Anna Petillo and Gerard Vernatico, making her story unique among the daughters we've examined. The tragic circumstances that brought Marie into the Genovese family began with violence, as was so often the case in these stories. Her father, Gerard Vernatico, was murdered in 1932, an event believed to be linked to mob activities. Following this tragedy, her mother, Anna, married Vito Genovese on March 28, 1932, just 12 days after Vernatico's death, integrating Marie into one of the most powerful crime families in America. Vito Genovese was a key figure in American organized crime, rising to prominence through alliances with figures like Lucky Luciano and becoming involved in various criminal enterprises, including drug trafficking and extortion. He led the Genovese crime family, one of New York City's 5 families, and his influence extended far beyond traditional organized crime activities. Anna Petillo, Marie's mother, was herself a remarkable figure who deserves recognition in this story. Anna was known for running nightclubs in Greenwich Village and being a pivotal part of New York's drag scene. Her independence and strong personality would later lead to one of the most dramatic divorces in organized crime history. Marie was raised in this blended family, alongside her half-siblings Nancy and Phil, from Anna's marriage to Vito. The family lived in various locations, including a mansion in Middletown Township, New Jersey, as Vito attempted to provide a semblance of normal family life away from the criminal activities that dominated his professional world. However, the Genovese family dynamics were far from normal. The marriage between Anna and Vito became increasingly strained, leading to a spectacular and dangerous divorce in 1953. Anna testified against Vito during their divorce proceedings, seeking $350 weekly in alimony on grounds of extreme cruelty, a rare and bold move for a mob wife that put her life at risk. This testimony was unprecedented in the world of organized crime, where family loyalty was considered sacred, and breaking omerta, the code of silence, could result in death. Anna's willingness to speak publicly about Vito's activities highlighted her fierce independence and contributed to Vito's 1959 conviction for narcotics trafficking. The most documented moment of Marie's adult life came at a time of great sadness. Marie was present at her mother's death on January 19, 1982, at St. Vincent's Hospital in New York City. Anna died from a stroke at age 77, surrounded by Marie, her granddaughter Mia, Marie's daughter, and Anna's lover Jackie. This event underscores Marie's close relationship with her mother. Despite the complexities of their family history, unlike the other daughters in our story, Marie chose a path of complete privacy. She did not seek public attention and is not known to have been involved in organized crime or public activities. Her life contrasts sharply with her mother's, who gained notoriety for her bold testimony against Vito and her prominent role in New York's entertainment scene, which explores Anna Genovese's life, mentions Marie in passing, particularly in the context of family relationships, but does not delve deeply into her individual story. ATPS, mobqueens.com, reinforcing her private nature. This podcast, hosted by Jessica Bendinger and Michael Seligman, focuses on Anna's role as a drag club maven and mob wife, providing context for the environment in which Marie was raised. Efforts to trace Marie through public records and genealogy websites have yielded limited information beyond basic family connections. This scarcity of information suggests she deliberately chose to live away away from the public eye, possibly to distance herself from the notoriety of her stepfather's criminal legacy and the dramatic circumstances surrounding her mother's life. The research indicates that Marie Genovesi's life was shaped by her family's ties to organized crime, but remained largely undocumented beyond her birth, her father's murder, her upbringing by Anna and Vito, and her presence at Anna's death. The lack of further public records may reflect her desire for privacy, a common choice for individuals connected to notorious figures who wish to avoid media scrutiny, and the potential dangers that come with public attention. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.